My little delegates. Today I'm going to show you this little flick on how to write the American Revolution paper, which I've gone over in class, but I figured I would give you the pleasure of showing you how to write the paper once more time. So, the paper, declaring independence was revolutionary for the Second Continental Congress. You guys declared independence. Now, the definition, a revolution, noun, is a significant and momentous change or an overthrow of government. We looked at that last year when we looked at the scientific, French, and industrial revolutions. Many historians agree that the American Revolution demonstrates both definitions. Many people think that it was a series of significant changes that led to an overthrow of government, which is right here. Wow, looks like a great thesis. Maybe you could use that. So it was a series of significant changes that eventually led to the overthrow of the British government. Now, your objective is to explain how the events from 1754 to 1776 led to the overthrow of the British government. How did these events lead to overthrowing the British government and creating a new country? Because when the delegates created the United States of America, that's overthrowing the government and creating your own country. There you go. You must use the following events in your essay, minus 3 points for each thing not mentioned in the essay. You must mention the Stamp Act, the Boston Tea Party, the Boston Massacre, the Sons of Liberty, the intolerable / coercive acts, the French and Indian War, the Second Continental Congress, the Declaration of Independence, smuggling, effigy or effigies, boycott, the Townshend Acts, and the battles of Lexington and Concord. You can use the words smuggling, effigy, effigies, and boycott anywhere in the essay, anywhere in the paper. This paper will be no more than 3 pages type, double space, 12 font times New Roman 1-inch margins. Minus 5 points for each one of those things not done correctly. So make sure it's done correctly. Content is 50 points of the essay. Mechanics, like grammar stuff, that's 50% of the essay. And the essay will be graded in 5-point increments. So like 100, 95, 90, 85, 80, 15, 10, 5. This is a way of telling you how to write an essay for social studies. Always write in the third person. Never say I, me, our, us, we, your. No. Third person. You write stating the facts. You don't say, I think the American Revolution. No, you say the American Revolution was. In your introduction, you're going to include the definition of a revolution. I don't care where you put it, but you should probably have it in there. You can even start it. You'll have a thesis statement. These are great examples. There were many significant events that happened in the 13 colonies from 1763 to 1776 that eventually led to the Second Continental Congress writing a Declaration of Independence. See what I've done there? I'm talking about significant events and that it eventually led to a Declaration of Independence which overthrew the government. From 1763 to 1776, the colonists' actions, meaning the way they responded to the taxes, proved to be revolutionary, which means they overthrew the government. They were changes, which wrote the Declaration of Independence, which severed ties or cut off the ties between Great Britain and the colonies. The Declaration of Independence was the final act of many events that happened in the colonies from this time period, which led to the overthrow of government. Notice how I have the dates in here in my thesis statement for all 3 of them. You're going to want to have some dates in your paper, especially in your introduction. The second or last sentence in your introduction is your thesis statement. Coffee. Your body paragraphs. This is the details. These are the M&Ms. You write in chronological order and thematically. Don't go from the French and Indian War to the Declaration of Independence and back to the Stamp Act. That's not even close to being in order. Body paragraphs should be no less than 6 sentences, but no more than 10. I don't need a 17-sentence paragraph. That's not a paragraph. That's a hostage situation of words. Do not just go fact after fact. Explain the hows and whys. So an example. In 1765, Great Britain passed the Stamp Act, which taxed all imported printed materials to the colonies. That's your fact. That's your statement. But you are then telling me why this act was important. Because of this act, the colonies were outraged and responded in many ways. So you're not just saying In 1765, Great Britain passed the Stamp Act, which taxed all imported printed materials in the colonies. In 1767, No, you want to give me a sentence that's a fact, and then a sentence that says why it's important. For example, things escalated in 1770 when 5 colonists were killed in what was called the Boston Massacre. That's the fact. The Boston Massacre was the first violent act of the Revolution. That's the evidence that tells me why it's important. See where I'm going with this? You can use this stuff. This is great. This is how I would suggest you write the paper in terms of chronological order. Chronological means in order. Obviously, it starts with the French and Indian War. You could then talk about how there was a lot of debt. If you want to mention the Sugar Act and the Quartering Act, you can. It doesn't really matter to me, but it's nice. Then you would tell me about the Stamp Act, and then you would tell me that it was repealed. You would tell me how the colonists responded to the Stamp Act. That was kind of a big deal. You would then talk about the Townshend Acts, the Boston Massacre, how the Townshend Acts were repealed, and the Sons of Liberty and the Writs of Assistance. What were they? The Tea Act, Boston Tea Party, and then how the Boston Tea Party led to the passing of the Coercive Acts or the Intolerable Acts, and how these acts led to the First Continental Congress. Then you would probably talk about how the battles of Lexington and Concord happened, and how that led to the Second Continental Congress, and then the Second Continental Congress declared independence, which officially overthrew the British government. Remember, you've got to include effigies and boycotting. I like tarring and feathering. That's fun, too. So that's what you got. Oh, and you remember also the words boycott, effigy, effigies, and smuggling. If you want to throw in tarring and feathering, that's a lot of fun. Now, this is how you write history papers. I'm giving you a handout about this too. But since this is what it sounds like, this is how you write the paper. You always write in the third person, again, because you were not there. So you wouldn't say, oh, I think the American Revolution was important. You would say the Revolution was important because. Always write in the past tense. The American Revolution isn't still happening. It already happened. Okay? George Washington's dead. Sam Adams is dead. The Boston Tea Party already happened. It's not still going on. Spell numbers unintended that are single or not in a relationship. So you would write out numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But if it's 121 or 33 or 18 or 9,290, you write the numbers like this. But you spell numbers like this. Paragraphs, I said 5 to 10-ish sentences, 8 to 10. Just don't run on. This is going to drive me crazy. You refer to people in history by their last name. You don't say George Washington did this and then George. No, you don't know who George is. He wasn't your friend. You got to refer to him as Washington. You introduce him as George Washington, first name, then last name, but then you refer to him by last name from that point on, Washington. I guarantee you one person in the grade will do this. I'll give everyone 50 for the days, and I'm not joking if you guys do this correctly. You don't put the TH there. The th is unnecessary. You just write out a date like this. If you put the TH in there, this is how it reads. On March 5th, 17... That's not how it works. Just write the date, would you? Now, this drives me insane. Be sure you've introduced a noun before using a subject pronoun. For example, it. You got to tell me what the noun is before. Okay? If you just write it, or it was, or it is, or it happened, I don't know what it is. So I'm going to assume it's McDonald's or Don's. Okay? Contractions. Contractions drive me insane. Don't say didn't, shouldn't, wouldn't, couldn't, couldn't. Say did not, would not, could not, should not, etc. Didn't is just what are you in, 3rd grade? Say did not. I will take off 1 billion points. 1 billion. If you say in conclusion or overall or anything like that, you will not believe. In conclusion's like something you do in Mahina. You don't write in conclusion or overall because I know it's the conclusion. It's the last paragraph. I didn't read a 400-page book this weekend to get to the last page where they said, in conclusion. I know it's the conclusion. I've read the past 400 pages. I get it. We hate this. Or finally or lastly. Just don't do that. It drives me nuts. I'll give everyone in the class 10A for the days If you don't, if one person does this, you don't get it. I can tell. Finally, do not start your essays with a question. I asked you the question. Just give me a paper or an essay that gives me an introductory sentence that's broad. So these are really broad sentences. The American Revolution was a significant event in American history. That's a great sentence. You can actually use that if you really want. Now, writing the American Revolution paper, again, you've got your introduction. Include the definition of a revolution. These are examples of great introductory paragraph sentences. Again, chronological order. Again, all the stuff I just mentioned. Actually, all this stuff I just talked about a minute ago. I guess I didn't delete that. Now, this is the chronological order of the events of the American Revolution in case you didn't take any notes on this unit, to which you probably didn't do a good job. It starts with the French and Indian War, then goes to the Proclamation of 1763, the Sugar Act, Quartering Act, Stamp Act, Sons of Liberty are created, Stamp Act is repealed, Townshend Act, Boston Tea Party, Tea Act, Boston Tea Party, I just said Boston Massacre, Tea Act, Boston Tea Party, coercive / intolerable acts, the First Continental Congress, the battles of Lexington and Concord, the Second Continental Congress, Declaration of Independence, 8th grade, graduation, marriage, death. This is how you write the paper. Enjoy.